What's up, guys? So I just wanted to make a walkthrough of my new product, Real Fire, and I already did a quick trailer to sort of go with it, but this is going to be more of a little bit more of a deep dive where we just kind of go through everything that's included, talk about sort of like where you might find this useful, and some stuff to sort of look out for some troubleshooting when using it. Um, so uh, First off, I guess I want to talk a little bit about like why I even made this. One thing that I noticed that I was doing was in situations where I might need some fire as a Cinema 4D user. If I'm doing kind of like MoGraphy stuff or whatever, I'd probably just use Pyro. It's pretty easy. Add vecting particles or just like kind of like little smoke or fire bursts and stuff like that. But for realistic fire, at least for me, I was kind of leaning on tools like Embergen. Um, a lot it has to do with just like the speed and interactivity of Embergen, but really it just seemed like it was just a lot easier to go to Embergen to get like realistic fire to the point to where I was wondering sort of like how capable the Pyro, just vanilla Pyro inside of Cinema 4D was for getting realistic fire, and so that kind of like led me down this path to investigate that. And what I found is that Pyro is actually really powerful, useful, and you can do a lot with it, and you can get it to look really, really good. Um, but starting from nothing and going to any one of these like setups that I've got in here is a pretty time-consuming process. It takes a lot of tweaking, a lot of dialing in settings. Um, and yeah, one of the big benefits of something like an Embergen is not only that it's so fast when you're working with it, but like I guess I should say I'm not like some Embergen master or anything. I don't really know how to use it all that well. The reason that it became really useful to me was because Embergen comes with a ton of templates and presets. So they've already got like a lot of the different things that you might want to use it for as a preset so that you can just go in and tweak a few settings and export it, and you've kind of like got what you need. So as I learned more about Pyro, uh, for myself, I wanted to make that, but obviously I thought that, for anybody else that might find that useful, basically, if you need some realistic fire, that this is going to save you a ton of time because, like I said, dialing in all these between like the three pillars of just working with Pyro and Cinema 4D are the emitter settings, the Pyro object settings, and then the shader settings. And all three of those take quite a bit of messing around with and tweaking. And Pyro inside of Cinema 4D, relative to all the, if you've played around with different sort of like fire systems in 3D, relative to everything, it's actually pretty fast. But compared to something like Embergen or Axiom in Houdini, it's still takes, it's still a slow process to kind of like play past the animation over and over again, make sure the fire is moving right. All that sort of stuff is pretty time consuming. And, like I said, between the emitter, the pyro object, and then the shader, going from zero to your finished sim is pretty time consuming. So the whole goal here was to dramatically decrease that time if you're working with Pyro in Cinema 4D. This is why it's just focused on realistic fire, because obviously everybody's use case as you're doing different stuff is going to be all over the place. But if you're just trying to make fire that looks like fire in a bunch of these different scenarios, like small fire, big fire, tiny little fire, hot fire, like hot in terms of just like the temperature or like the exposure of the camera. Like some fire is going to just almost be sort of white. Some of it's you're going to see a lot of orange, all that different stuff, all those different variations. That's kind of what I was going for. And like I said, I tried to think up like just a lot of different situations and a lot of different things that are gonna just kind of like check off all the boxes for like what people might need. And by the way, if you go through this, if you watch this video, because I'm just gonna go through all of them, if there's something that I missed, if you're like, hey, you didn't do a blah blah blah, let me know in the comments and I'll totally add that. And yeah, for I didn't say this in the trailer, but I'm thinking that right now, like updates to this will just be free. Like if I add something later, if I improve any of these setups, it'll just be a free update, and you can download that and get the updated version for free if you go ahead and pick this up. All right, so let's go through the presets. Everything has an animated preview in the asset browser, just so you can see what it does. So some of these, like this isn't exactly like a realistic fire setup, but some things are in here because there's some part of the setup that I think is notable that I kind of like. I'm like, hey, you should probably be aware of this. So that's the case with something like this, where the rotation on this little ball is the thing that is powering kind of like how the fire is shooting out of that. So this is really good for if you just kind of, if you need a fireball or a smoke ball that's just kind of shooting fire or smoke out in random directions. And based on how fast it's spinning, how much you dial that in, you can get a lot of different looks with that. So yeah, like if you just kind of like wanted to put like this on a path and just kind of have like a puffy sort of violent kind of puff ball that's following that, this would be a good setup. Obviously, these are all built to kind of like be a starting spot, and then you go in and add stuff to it. I've got an asteroid here. Got good old barrel. People can stand around, warm themselves. Campfire. It's got a little bit more sort of like ambient turbulence, like for wind. Got very small scale fire, like for a candle or a match. Got a big car fire. A couple of concert bursts. 1 and 2. A couple different flavors of that. Got some burning, falling debris. More mellow fireplace fire. Got a couple of flamethrowers with different shading looks, different setups also. There's a lot of ground fires. I just feel like this is probably something that if you're working with, you know, if you're building up a shot or something like that, ground fire is probably going to be something that a lot of people might need. So got a lot of different flavors of ground fire. Kind of a small one, larger one. This one has darker, more density, basically darker, more billowy smoke. These two are pretty much the same, just different shaders. And we've got like a little tiny one. And I've got these in here that say DENS mask, and that stands for density mask. So one of the things, if you use Pyro or if you get this set, one of the things you're going to run into is for realistic fire, at the source of the thing that's burning, it's usually not that bright. But when you use Pyro, so like you can see it in these examples, they're a bit simpler. You've got kind of like this blob at the source. You can somewhat negate this look by just having a ton more voxels, and like basically having your emitter be a smaller shape so you don't have much of a blob. But another way to do that is to mask the emission using one of the other channels. So in this one, what you would notice is that you're not going to get any smoke out of this simulation because the density is in the shader. The density is being used as a mask to mask that sort of emission point so that things look more realistic. So that's a setup. uh, you know, that's in there so that you can kind of see how that works if that's what you ultimately need. We've got a couple of jet engines, a couple of different flavors of that. I just kind of put all these in one preset. Just a big old fire, just a really big, raging, billowing smoke fire. I've got this kind of like little fireball thing. Again, this is about the setup here, which is why I thought this one was notable, where I can just kind of open this up really quick. It's very small. Some of these are done to scale. Is this that small? Or maybe it's not that small. It's just that it's not. Oh, it's not that small. Okay. But yeah, the point here is if we look at this volume builder, we're using a volume builder to kind of push the fire around this original emitter shape so that we're getting this kind of like swirling look. And so if you wanted to, I think that this would be good for like if you wanted to create like a thing that kind of almost looks like it's sort of like magically on fire, like a fire monster or something like that, because the fire is basically being pushed across the normals of the surface. Anyway, so that's that. Let's get rid of that. This is another sort of like a ground fire, except there's things that are on fire. We've got some rubble, and it's on fire. But that's what that one looks like. So again, like a lot of these, it's just a variation in the setup. And that's kind of, or it might be like a variation in the shader. It's both of those in this case. We've got just a quick burst. Got a torch. We've got a couple of window fires. So this one's more like something inside the window and a very violent fire coming out of that. And then here's more like the window frame. And this is all procedural so that you can adjust the size of the window. It's just a simple Boolean with a box and a plane. So you can adjust that and get any sort of shape you want. And then we've got a wooden post that's on fire. So those are the templates. Then, so with each one of these, I've got, you know, a shader that is tailored. Like, let's open this one up again. A shader that's pretty much tailored just for that fire, where you've got, as I said, there's a lot of settings to dial in, and yeah, it can take a while to just like balance all this stuff because it depends how it's going to look is going to depend on what's going on in your sim, how hot the fire is, what is the temperature versus the density doing in the simulation. So there's kind of like a lot of variables. So obviously all of these are made to look good with their individual thing. But let's use this one as an example, and I've just got one over here that I've already cached. So this is that same sim. This is the ground fire density mask. So let's just jump to the frame. And so this is the shader that is applied when you first load this, the one here, and that's what it looks like. And one of the things that I wanted to show is that, okay, so here's the shader that comes with this template, and this is what's going on with it. It's not too complicated, but it's got, like I said, it's got some stuff dialed in for sure. And what I want to show that in contrast to is the default Pyro shader, when you just go create materials and add a Pyro volume, which is, I've already got that in here. I think this one, yeah, I haven't edited it. No, wait, that's the default. Okay, So let's drop that on here. And that's what the default Pyro shader is going to look like. For pretty much all of the templates that I'm doing, I'm not using the default Pyro shader. I'm using the standard volume, which I think is you can kind of set up for a bit more control. I think the default Pyro shader is good for if you just want to drop something on there and get something that looks okay. That's fine. But you can do a lot more. You can take things a lot farther than how this is set up. It's kind of like a lot of stuff is kind of just like done for you a little bit. So if you set it up yourself, I feel like you have like quite a lot more control. But obviously, with the cost of that being, it's going to take longer to do the setup. But not if you have bought this pack, because I've already got a bunch of shaders in here. So let me go back to the shader that comes with it. Looks like that. But then these are some of the other shaders that we've got in here, because all the shaders are in here, as well as just a few in here I threw in because I made them and they looked cool or whatever. So let's just go through some of these other shaders. So same sim, but totally different look. But like, if I don't say so myself, like a much better look than just that default Pyro shader. Let's do another one. Okay. Different look. Different look. So you probably get the idea. With this can dramatically speed up working with Pyro, because setting all this stuff up from scratch every single time, like I said, is just like, it's really, I know because I just did it 20 something times, it's pretty time consuming. And so if you are working on a job, working on a project, there's going to be some fire in there, maybe multiple instances of fire. I really think that this will pretty dramatically speed up your workflow. Okay, so that's that. So as I said, there's how many? 23 different shaders in here. You can they're the shaders that are used in all the templates, and I think a few more. Maybe not a few more. Maybe just the ones that are used in the templates. But yeah, you can just drag and drop a bunch of these different shaders on any one of these sims and get a totally different look. And a lot of, I mean, some of them are going to work in some cases and not in other cases. Like I said, there's a bunch of different variables that are going to affect what the fire looks like. But yeah, sometimes you will absolutely land on happy accidents between like the 20 something shaders. You can drag and drop something on there and you'll find something that like looks really cool for sure. Okay, so beyond that, there's a couple more things I want to just mention. These are all set up to, so if you haven't worked with Pyro that much, you might not know just within Cinema 4D how that's structured. So the Pyro settings, like if we make a new scene and just make like a whatever, just make a cube and add Pyro, you're gonna get this Pyro output node, which has got settings over here and your cache, blah blah blah, whatever. The thing to be aware of is you've got this link right here and it says default simulation scene. Now what that is that's actually where the Pyro settings live, is in what's called your simulation scene. And if you press Control D and you go to simulation and Pyro, this is the same thing, but so just for instance, if I come here and I set this to 3 and then I go back to my Pyro output, you can see that this is set to 3. So that's just linking to that default simulation scene. So in order to just make these self-contained little assets that you can just drag and drop in your scene, um, you can always come here and you can just create your own simulation scene as an object and not use the default simulation scene. So that's how all of these are set up. They're made with their own simulation scene. So if you drag and drop any one of these into a scene, you need to be aware that it's in its own simulation scene. So this one's probably not a good example. But if you, maybe like this one. So if you had this and then you were like, okay, this is cool, but I want to add my own turbulence to this. And you come here and we add some turbulence, throw that in there, and you press play. I'm not gonna like let this play through, but what you would notice is that it's not gonna be affecting the fire. The reason for that is because by default, it's going to add it to the default simulation scene. Where are you? Here. Okay, so it adds it here, but not in this custom simulation scene. So all you need to know is that you need to manually add it, and that's it. So if you want to continue to build on this, that's just something to be aware of, that you need to manually add stuff to this simulation scene. An alternative that you can do is, let's say you have let's make a new scene, and again, you drop this in here, is you can just copy the settings from your from this Pyro object simulation scene to the default simulation scene. And so let's just take this one setting, because I'm not going to do that whole thing. Press Control D, go in here to Pyro, Control V, and let's just pretend like I added all the settings. So then all I need to do, I can go in here, delete this simulation scene, and in here, when you delete your old simulation scene, it automatically added this Pyro emitter tag to the default simulation scene. So now we're basically working with the default simulation scene. So this is now just kind of like moved over to the default simulation scene. And if you were going to say like add a lot of changes to any one of these, it might be worth it to just do this so that you don't have to constantly add things to this new simulation scene. The other thing is, if you are going to sort of do things with particles and work with other areas of Cinema 4D's simulation system, it's probably a good idea to migrate this over to the default simulation scene, because I ran into issues where things were behaving oddly and in unexpected ways when I'm trying to expand, like do stuff with particles, like advect particles with the Pyro stuff in here, while I'm using this custom simulation scene versus the default simulation scene. Things get weird. So I'd say if you're going to do that, just before you start, go in, move all the settings over, delete this simulation scene. You might also need to come here and create a new output, which is it's just gonna copy these settings here and then just drag the shader to that and then delete that. I'm just doing some troubleshooting for you, because things don't work and then you figure out the thing that works. I don't know why it works, but it works. So that might be a thing that you run into if you get into that situation. So yeah, make a new output, move your shader over, delete the old one, migrate your settings from the custom simulation scene to the default simulation scene, and you're good. Okay. Yep, I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all I wanted to go over in this walkthrough. As I said, so a couple things. If you pick this up, please let me know in the comments what you think about it. Like I said, if there's something that is wrong, messed up, unclear, you feel like, oh, this could have been done better, by all means, let me know. It's pretty easy to just make some changes and update it. If there's a fire setup that you're missing that you think would go good in here, let me know. I can add that in, and it'll just be a free update. Yeah, beyond that, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Be sure to like and subscribe. This is number one. I am looking to make at least 2 more packs similar to this. So I wanted to do fire, smoke, and then probably explosions. And then maybe we'll do like a bundle where you can get all 3 for like a discount or something like that. But yeah, like and subscribe, follow to be aware of those updates. Yeah, that's about it. Later.